I don't know if you realise this, but it's an important week. It's Remembrance Week. On Thursday, November the 11th, we have Remembrance Day. And then Sunday, the 14th, Remembrance Sunday. You might remember last year during lockdown, people stood on their doorsteps and had a 2-minute silence on Remembrance Sunday. What do we remember? Well, we remember the end of the First World War, 11 a.m. on November the 11th, 1918. And ever since then, at 11 o'clock on the 11th of November, there has been a 2-minute silence to commemorate the end of the First World War. This, of course, is a poppy. Every Remembrance Week we buy and wear a poppy, and it all goes back to the First World War. There was a soldier who was also a doctor in the field called John McCrae. His best friend died in the fields of Flanders in North Belgium. John was there on the battlefield himself, and in the midst of the destruction and the devastation and the death, he noticed flowers growing, a symbol of life, a promise that the war would come to an end, and they were poppies. He was so moved by this, he wrote a poem which has become very well known. In Flanders fields, the poppies blow. In America, there was a school teacher called Moira Michael, and she heard this poem, and she was so moved by it that she created poppies out of silk. Back in Britain in 1921, the Royal British Legion wanted to raise money for the families of soldiers who had died or for soldiers who were injured and not able to work. What would they do to raise funds? Well, they heard about Moira Michael, who'd heard this poem, and so they ordered 9,000 poppies for Britain to sell, to raise money for soldiers and their families. 100 years later, people are still selling these poppies to support soldiers and their families. What is the meaning of the poppy? What does it symbolize? You remember John McCrae. As he saw the poppies growing, he was encouraged. It was a symbol of life. The war will come to an end. The bloodshed will stop. The poppy itself is symbolic. The black in the middle reminds us that sadly, wars have continued ever since. The First World War did not bring an end to all wars. The red reminds us that blood has been shed on battlefields across the world ever since. How many hundreds of thousands, millions have died on the battlefield? Well, we remember this on Remembrance Day. And the green reminds us that we have freedom today, and we can enjoy that freedom. We don't have to go to war or to battles ourselves because of the courage and the sacrifice of others. As a Christian, as a pastor, I see added symbolism as well. I see the black, and it shows us that there is sinfulness, that there is selfishness and greed in the heart of every person. The red reminds us that Jesus died on the cross. His blood was shed so that everyone who believes in Jesus can be forgiven, that they can have peace with God. And the green reminds us that there is everlasting and eternal life because of Jesus' death in our place. We have thought about the poppy and Remembrance Week, the importance of remembering the end of the First World War and commemorating all those who've lost their lives on the battlefield and those who've suffered because of war. We can give thanks that we have peace in our country, that we can enjoy freedom. If you've been to a church or a chapel, then this communion cup will be familiar to you. As Christians, we remember often Jesus' death. The wine is a symbol of Jesus' blood, and the bread a symbol of Jesus' body broken for us. He died as the ultimate sacrifice, a display of courage and love for our freedom, for our forgiveness. All the bad things and all the things that we've said and thought and done can be forgiven because of Jesus' death. And so this Remembrance Week, wear your poppy. Give thanks to those who lost their lives for your freedom. Give thanks for the peace that we have in our country. Do everything that we can to be peacemakers in our society and community. Learn to forgive. Learn to love others. Learn to accept others. Let us be people of peace. And also let us remember the greatest and ultimate sacrifice, that Jesus should die on the cross for people like you and me.